Okay. Welcome everyone for the Big Red Masterclass on poetry and sort of reading creatively. We're joined here with our mentor, Marissa Grunes, and assisting her would be Allison as well. Before we begin today's session, I would love for all of you to please switch on your cameras just for a couple of quick minutes. We'll get some healthy discussions going on before we begin with the actual poetry masterclass for today. Awesome. Thank you, Tavashi, Vatsal, Sharanya. Good to see you. Anushri, hi. Awesome. Good to see so many young women out there trying to learn poetry and excited about it. I know a lot of people who have joined the poetry program are also girls, so really excited to see that. And also, of course, the boys who are interested in poetry and literature in general. Thank you so much for all of you for making it for today's session. Before we begin, I would love for any of you to raise your hands and sort of tell us as to what are you planning to learn from today's session and why have you joined the masterclass today? Anyone can go ahead. Aditi? Sorry, I thought you raised your hand, but anyone can raise their hand and sort of take us through their comments. Okay, we'll first go with Anushri.
Yeah, hi, good evening. I'm Anushri. And I was hoping to learn to compare my literature and my style with other poets and learn how others do it. Basically, I have formed myself an impromptu style, and I want to learn more about it and more in depth. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. And Anushri, where are you joining us from?
India.
Where in India are you?
Pune.
Pune. Awesome, Anushri. Thank you for that comment and raising your hand.
Thank you.
Okay, over to Alyssa.
Hi, good evening. So I'm actually working on a book on poetry at the moment. So just wanted to get to know it better and others' opinion on something that I love to do.
Perfect. Congratulations. That's an awesome job, Alyssa, that you're already working on a book. And hopefully, we've got our PhD scholar here today, and hopefully a lot of light would be shed on different writing styles or poetry styles. I'm not too sure. I would let Marissa handle that, but congratulations and thank you for joining in.
Thank you.
We go to Sunira.
Hi, I'm Sion. Actually, this is my mom's number.
Okay.
I'm here because, well, I actually really like literature as a subject itself. Plus, I'm into reading books and I'm currently writing one as well. It's not finished, just the first draft. But yeah, I really like literature.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. And I would like to remind all of you, we have got an amazing poetry program coming up next week, which is going to be led by a few professors from Harvard and also, one college credit that you'll get out of the program with the full transcript. So it's going to be really exciting. We've worked really hard to get you that program. So please look into it. I will be sharing the links after, but thank you for your comments, and it's lovely to know how many of you are already writing your own book on poetry or on literature. So thank you for sharing. We'll take a few more comments, Marissa, if that's okay. Awesome. Swarnika.
Hello. So I am here because I'm an absolute bookworm. I've written poetry since I was in 7th grade, but I recently started posting on Instagram. I don't know much about the technical terminology of poetry, so I'm hoping to understand more the technical aspects.
Thank you. So a lot of technical aspects that people want to write or think about, Marissa, for something for you to think about in the session. Over to Nanika.
Yes, so I love writing. And I've written both poetry and literature. And I love literature in general. And I try to learn as much as I can. So that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Thank you. And hopefully you guys all will take something out of today's session. I'm really excited about it too. Thank you for sharing, Nanika. Ashna.
Hi, I'm Ashna Khanna. So I've written 2 books so far already. I wrote Deep Hollows at the age of 12 and Legs or Tails into the Depths at the age of 13. But I've joined this masterclass because I want to enhance my creative writing skills overall and learn about formal and structural patterns.
Awesome. Wow. I mean, I'm feeling like, I don't know, feeling very overwhelmed in the sense that I feel useless as to what I've been doing all my life because you kids already have accomplished so much. So thank you, Ashna, for sharing, all you budding writers and writers, professional writers, I would say already. So thank you for joining in, and thanks, Ashna, for that. Anushri.
Good evening, sir. So I'm
Great.
here because I love literature. I love studying the literature chapters, and I love literature than any other subject. That's why I'm here. Thank you, sir.
Awesome. I love those candid responses. I love literature. That's why I'm here, and we are glad that we're able to provide you with some avenue. I know literature is something not easy in India in the sense that how it's taught in classes here. People have to go out of their way, and that's why this is our very small way of making sure that you get different perspectives from around the world, and getting to learn from beautiful mentors like Marissa. Over to last comment from Manna.
Hi, I'm Mannat. I study in grade 10 and I'm from India, Delhi. I maintain a blog and I've been writing there quite a lot. And at the same time, I love to I am a public speaker, and I often have to give speeches in the public. However, when we write speeches, we have to write it in a style or in a way that it is just like a story, and basically comprehends the audience is able to comprehend the message in an easier way and in a way that's interesting. I feel that right now, whatever skills I do and however many speeches I've given, I haven't been able to make that sort of an impact that I wish to make, and that's why I'm here to know about a different style of writing, and maybe that could be incorporated in the articles I write for my blogs as well.
Thank you for sharing, Manad, and feel free to post or email us your blogs. We love to showcase blogs from young high school students from around the world. We'd love to showcase on our website and to our audience, which is out there. Thank you, guys. Thanks for keep the comments coming in. I think this is one of my favorite parts before the session begins, and hopefully, Marissa, you'll give me some leeway to keep this going. Thank you. Over to Srivali. And please also tell us, Srivali, where are you from in India?
Okay. I'm Srivali. I am a grade 12 student from Delhi NCR region. And I joined the seminar because I'm really into literature and I love reading. You can see that's my library back there. That's part of my library back there. So I am into reading. I am a poet. I write. I have poetry that's been published in my school magazine. I'm trying to publish my own book at the moment. We're working on that. I'm really into literature because just seeing the different perspectives and how different people look at the world and understand the world, it is really, really interesting.
Awesome. Thank you. And congratulations once again. You guys are just blowing my mind as to how much you've already accomplished, and can't see where you guys are headed. Vara.
Yes, good evening, sir. I am Vara Fatima. I study in the 8th grade in Martin Girls College, Lucknow, India. I attended this session because I am also very fond of literature. I read many books, and there is also a storytelling competition coming up. So this is sort of like helpful for me. And although I know how to write stories, I have written some short stories, I still think that they could be improved. So that is another reason. I have also tried to write poetry. My mother, she was very encouraging at first, but now, I feel that I could do much better.
and I'm just doing mediocre. So I came to improve on these topics.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Vara, and hopefully you'll move from short stories and write some poetry as well and get some inspiration from today's session. Thank you for sharing. Navya.
Hi, I'm Navya. I'm in grade 9, Shadnada School, Noida. I'm a part of my school's editorial board, and we put out publications which pertain to poetry, literature, reviews, and all that. And I'm just trying to find my writing style. I don't have a definite style of working, and I'm trying to, understand what works well for me, and what people like to read, like from what I read. So I'm just exploring, all these seminars and courses.
Thank you. Thank you, Navya. Okay, last comment by Arav. Great to have a guy speak as well. So perfect. Awesome.
I'm Arav. I'm from Mumbai. I generally enjoy English as a whole, so I just want to see where the language can take me.
Awesome. Okay. Well, again, guys, I cannot wait to see. I know so many of you have already registered for the program starting next week called Poetry in America Intensive. It's going to be a very fun-filled 9 days in that, and looking forward to what you guys learned today. So having said that, Marissa, I'm going to put a quick spotlight on you. Before we begin, Marissa, I would also love for you to talk about your journey as from high school to college and what you're doing right now. And hopefully that will, sort of give these students a new pathway as to what you're doing today. And how can literature sort of help them move forward. So on that note, thank you once again for being our mentor today. Really looking forward to the session, and over to you.
Hello, everybody. Is everyone able to hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Yeah, thumbs up.
Yeah, ma'am.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So my name is Marissa. I did my PhD at Harvard University in English literature, working with Lisa New, who is the founder and director and overall sort of godmother of Poetry in America, who created these courses, this material. Some of you may have encountered her in the past if you've done any work with the Poetry in America world, or the things that the Big Red Group is putting together at this masterclass. And I was just like you all in high school. I really loved to read, really like to write poetry. And as I went through my studies, I discovered that it was something that the way that I thought about it was, what are the things that will keep me up all night? What are the things that I'm willing to just keep working, through the night on? And literature was the one thing that I was just willing to not sleep in order to do. And so that's why I decided to pursue the PhD. And I now work primarily, these days I work on 19th century American literature and poetry, and I also work as a science writer. So that's been an interesting journey that I've been able to transition to public writing and journalism in the sciences, partly through thinking about literature and all of the ways that the imaginative process can help people engage with more technical things like the sciences that can sometimes be difficult to understand if you don't have the training. I'm super excited to be here and sharing this beautiful poem that we're going to be looking at, Those Winter Sundays with Robert Hayden, which is just a wonderful poem that has brought a lot of meaning to a lot of people around the world. So thank you so much. And I am in Boston, in Massachusetts.
Awesome.
So should I go ahead and start, or?
Please,
yeah?
please, yes.
All right, let's take it away. And Allison Esther is going to be here helping me get our, make sure that if any of you have your hands up, I won't miss your questions. If you have any questions at any point, you can just chime in or you can raise your hand and Alice and Esther will keep track of that, or you can drop notes into the chat and both of us will do our best to keep track. I'm very, very lucky. We're all very lucky that we have Alice and Esther here this early morning over where we are. I think you're also in on the East Coast, yeah, helping us out. So thank you so much for that. All right, let's go ahead and get it started. I'm just going to pull up our slides. All right, is everyone seeing our slideshow? Excellent. All right. So welcome everybody to this masterclass. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. This is me. This was taken a couple years ago in Australia. So you can see I've cut my hair since then. And Poetry in America, just to give you a quick rundown of what we do. So as I mentioned, it was created by Harvard professor Lisa New, who was my advisor in graduate school. It includes a public television series on PBS. We're going to be seeing some clips from that. And also this educational initiative, we do all kinds of classes around the world. We have classes for continuing learners or young learners like yourselves. We've got classes in high schools in the United States. And we've got these really exciting opportunities to work with folks like you all. As Lisa likes to say that there are engaged poetry readers everywhere. We just have to find them. You know, they say, oh, the humanities don't matter anymore, but we know that there are people for whom they really do matter. And you all are some of those. And also some of the people on this list here, Joe Biden, Shaquille O'Neal, the basketball star Shaq, Gloria Estefan. All of these people are people for whom poetry actually still matters. And they're all contributors to the PBS show and the educational programs. And we're going to be seeing some of them speak today. We're working with Arizona State University, which is now hosting us at the Center for Public Humanities. So we're just going to start with a little introduction to the kind of thing that you can expect if you're in the summer intensive course that's launching in July. And one of the things we're going to be doing is working with the PBS series, watching some of these episodes and then discussing them with your instructors and mentors. So I want to just give you a quick glimpse of what that's going to look like. This is a reading of a poem by the Harlem Renaissance poet Langston Hughes. And we are going to be commenting on this poem, the former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, Herbie Hancock, who's a very prominent jazz musician, who's the first jazz musician to have an album sell more than 1 million copies, called Going Platinum, and Sonia Sanchez, who is a very important African-American poet from Harlem, who actually knew Langston Hughes. So I'm going to go ahead and cue that up for you. All right. I'm just realizing I might need to stop the share and make sure that you can hear the sound on it. So just give me 1 second to do that. Sorry about that. Share sound, there we go. All right. So this is Herbie Hancock starting us off. Can everybody hear what he's saying? Is there audio?
Audio.
Yeah, okay. I'm not hearing the audio either. Let me see if that could be because of these.
Yeah, that generally is because of the headphones and everything coming together.
Again. Uh-oh.
Marissa, you could maybe put the
Is that working now?
No, But you can put the link in the Vimeo link in the chat, and I could play it from my end as well. Marissa, can you hear us? Marissa, we're not able to hear anything.
Okay, someone just said that you still can't hear the video.
Yeah, we cannot.
Yeah, yes, I did that. I will try that again though and see if that works this time. Sorry about that. Oh, it says my speaker isn't working.
If you would like, you could put the link on the chat and I could share my screen and sort of do that.
Yeah, let me just try that one more time. I think it might have to do with the fact that I was using Bluetooth headphones.
That's correct. Yeah.
And that sometimes causes problems. So, okay. All right, thank you for bearing with us. Let's see.
The spirit of a poem.
What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode?
Langston Hughes was heavily influenced by music. So there's a rhythm, there's a musical rhythm to this poetry. It's a lot like jazz. It's clearly one melody, yes, but there's some ad-libbing, some improvisation as you go along. Some of the lines rhyme. It's a different rhyming scheme, but it's enough to remind you that it's a poem, just like it'd be enough to remind you that it was a jazz song.
This whole piece, that when you do it, you hear the jazz and blues, you know, so you have to then take your mouth and make your tongue begin and respond. What happens to a dream deferred? Do that, do that, do that, do that, do that, do do that, do that, do. Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a so, and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Or does it explode? He gives you. Well, you just sang this all as bebop. Right.
All right. So that was just to give you a little taste of what is coming. And now we're going to switch to thinking about some of the ways that we can all talk about poetry together. Let's go ahead and, is it gonna, yep, nice. All right, are you seeing my screen again? And everyone can hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, great. I'm just gonna leave those headphones out because I think those were causing the problem. Thank you for your patience. All right, so some of the things that we're hoping to get from our poetry intensive and from doing this kind of work with poetry, some of the things that you saw happening in that video. You can see there's some observations that are going on, thinking about, oh, the rhymes in the poetry and the words. There's some putting the poetry into context, connecting with other art forms. So jazz music in this case, which is something that everybody who was speaking was familiar with. And there's also just some finding pleasure in the experience of reading the poem, listening to it, all the different ways that poetry can come across to us. And so among the kinds of things that we're going to be focusing on in the intensive are, again, introduction to college level literature. So there's opportunities during this course to, if you complete the course successfully, to then take that credit forward into your college experience, connecting with a whole range of art forms, whether that's performance art like music or the visual arts. Also thinking about literary history, and it's American literary history, but it's also connected with the history of all sorts of different places across the world, because we have poems by people who have immigrated and comments by people who have immigrated from all over the place, and who are thinking about global history as well. Argumentative writing, because we're going to be thinking about building ideas and arguments about poetry. And then, of course, self-expression, learning how to express yourself, communicate things both about poetry and in poetry. And I know that many of you are writers, as you've all shared, writers of speeches, articles, blogs, poetry. And so developing your own creative forces through thinking about what other poets and other masters have done. So these are just some of the things that we hope you'll get to enjoy in the summer intensive course with the Big Red Group and the Poetry in America intensive in July. So to give you a little glimpse of what we have coming up, we're going to read a poem by the poet Robert Hayden called Those Winter Sundays. And first I want us all to read it together. And then we're going to hear the current president, Joe Biden, reading it. And we're going to do some discussion, explore, and hopefully kind of get a sense for what the pleasure of poetry can be for all of us through this medium. So could I have 3 volunteers to help read this poem? So I'm thinking 1 person per stanza. Is there anybody open to giving me a hand with this? All right.
We've got 3, so I'll take the first 3. Sorry.
Okay, Rishi, you're in charge of figuring this out.
Okay, so we'll go with Nanika, Khadija, and then Sharanya in that order. So Nanika, you can go ahead with the first stanza.
On this too, my father got up early and put on his clothes in the blue-black coat. Then with cracked hands that ached from labor, in the weekday weather made blanked fires ablaze. No one ever thanked.
I'd wake and hear the coals splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house.
Sharanya, go ahead. Okay, I think Sharanya can't hear us. So we'll go to the next one.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Sharanya, go ahead.
Speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the coal and polished my good shoes as well, what did I know of love's austere and lonely offices?
That was beautiful. Thank you, all 3 of you. That was really, really beautifully read. So just to get started, what I would love is for everybody thinking about this poem to choose 1 word. It can be a word in the poem, or it can just be a word that comes to your mind, 1 word that captures this poem for you. And we're going to go ahead and share those words on menti.com. So if you're able to log in, or sorry, not log in, but put menti.com into your browser and use the code 29645886. We're going to create a word cloud together. of all of the words that come to your mind, just one word for each person. Thank you.
That's great. I've actually put the link and the code on the chat as well, guys. So just copy it and use it. And while we are doing that, Marissa, it'll actually be great to see the poem once again and sort of soak it in. Once again, we can come back to Menti in like a couple of minutes while you guys are thinking of that one word that really encapsulates the poem.
There it is. I'm just gonna click over to that other screen just to make sure that it's working. Yep, great, they're coming in. All right, we're gonna go back to this poem. And Rishi, I'll let you be in charge of the timing.
Sure.
Because you're very good at that part.
Ma'am, are we allowed to use 2 words?
Yeah, you can use 2 words if you like, absolutely.
And for some of you who are not able to put it on menti.com, it'll be great, of course, to see it in a cloud, but feel free to share it even on the chat here, and we could pick those up as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, we've got a nice big cloud growing here. Rishi, about how much longer do you think?
I think we can do 30 more seconds and switch it back.
Fabulous. All right, let's put this back. I was seeing some words coming into the chat as well. Brilliant.
Thank you everyone for sharing on chat and on the cloud as well.
Yeah, this is amazing. All right. I think, why don't we take a look at what we've got. Oops, okay. There we go. See if I can make this bigger.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah.
All right, everyone can see what we're looking at?
Yep.
Got so many things going on my screen right now, things coming out of the chat, seeing everybody here engaged. All right. So I'm seeing a lot of lonely, but also love, cold, austere. This is just beautiful. And a couple of 2-word answers as well. Some overlap with the chat too. So let's take a look at the chat. Also, we've got nostalgic, unconditional affection, childhood memory, love of a father, brokenness, parenthood, regret, shattered, peaceful holiday, selflessness, naivete. So, all right, this is amazing, rather common. So would somebody who, how about we start with lonely, since that seems to be a big one here. Would somebody who put down lonely like to explore for a few moments what they had in mind when they chose that word? and share that with us.
Anyone who wrote Lonely can just feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. No one? Okay.
No one else. Okay. How about anybody who just really wants to share which word they wrote and why? Maybe some of you who chose the less common words will have some. All right, I'm seeing some hands. So that was a better approach.
That's good.
See, we're learning. We're all learning together. All right, Rishi, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Naomi, go for it.
Yeah, I wrote the word frequent, but it doesn't come up here. I wrote frequent because reading this, however, it seems a bit sad and it seems a bit maudlin, but at the end of the day, I kind of feel like this is what happens a lot with people. It feels really common and, you know, connected to real life. That's why I chose the word frequent for this poem.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Naomi. Frequent was the word you said because you feel that this happens to a lot of people. Thank you. Let's go take a couple more comments. Shrivali.
I chose regret because after like going through the piece of poetry multiple times, I sensed an undertone of regret where the poet, or maybe whoever's point of view this is, they are trying to express how they treated or talked with their father, interacted with their father, but they feel that it was incorrect of them to do so, and they have a sense of regret going on with that, is what I felt.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And we'll take a few more comments, Marissa, and then of course you can debrief right after.
Perfect.
Anushree.
Yeah, so I read the poem a couple of times, and I put down the word gratitude because to me it felt like the speaker was trying to express their gratitude towards their guardian/parent. And it felt like the world had treated their parent wrong, and yet like the parent hadn't gotten the respect and recognition they deserve. So the child was trying to express their gratitude. So that's why I put that in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I'm loving the different words and why you guys, again, evokes, that's what poetry does, evokes different emotions. I love it. Sunira. Okay.
Hello. Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I've written childhood memory because after reading the piece, I like this thing struck me that maybe a person is writing this based on that person's memory that his or her father used to wake up on harsh winter days, even Sundays or the whole week, and he used to work hard. So I think childhood memory suited that poem more.
Got it. And thank you for that. And we'll take one more comment, guys, because I know otherwise we'll keep going on. But feel free to please put your comments on the chat as well, and hopefully we can respond to them even there. We'll take one last comment. Shevadi.
Yeah, so I put familial relationships because I feel like the poet is he's comparing, actually, he's reflecting on a past memory of him with his father and reflecting back on what was that back then, what he could not realize. So there's also regret, which I've not mentioned, but it's mostly about his relationship with his father. So in a nutshell, he's regretting what he did not notice when he was little. So right now he's all grown up and reminiscing those memories with.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Over to you, Marissa.
Thank you all. Yeah, no, this is, first of all, just let me say what an honor it is to be here, hearing all of your thoughts. There's just so many amazing observations and intuitions And one of the things that I really want to stress here is that it's important to really value that initial impression that you get, the feeling, the images that come to you just the first time that you're reading a poem or the first time you're coming back to a poem after a while. Because as all of you are seeing, there's some really potent intensity that you can pull out of that initial feeling. And then one of the things that we want to do is dig a little deeper and see what else we can draw out of the poem by looking at the technique and the particular decisions that the poet has made around things like rhyme and stanzas. So we are now going to hear the poem read again. And the idea here is to try to give ourselves another chance to go even deeper, see things that maybe we didn't notice the first time. And sometimes when you hear somebody else read something, it can also make a difference. So we're going to be hearing this read by Joe Biden, and also there's another poet who's going to be reading part of this, Elizabeth Alexander, who is also a very prominent poet and was an inaugural poet for Obama's inauguration in 2008. So hopefully this time the share is going to work. Let's start right now and make sure you can hear it.
Yes. Perfect.
You can hear it. Great.
Those winter Sundays. Sundays too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. And then with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather made, banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him.
I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house.
Speaking indifferently to him, who had driven out the cold, polished my good shoes as well.
What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices?
All right. So as we go into thinking about this poem a little bit more, one of the things that I want to come back to are just some of the skills that we are aiming to focus on. Now, when we talk about this poem, and actually I'll just go ahead and put the poem back up on the screen. There are a couple, like I said, major sort of approaches that we like to take in Poetry in America in terms of thinking about how we can get a little deeper into this poem, and hopefully, you know, rereading and rereading and hearing from different types of speakers will give us some thoughts. So the first thing is what we've been doing, what we started out doing is just making observations. What are some words that are jumping out to us? What's the tone? What are some of the rhyming words? Things like that. And then we'll look at the structure and the form. So for instance, it's in 3 stanzas. We have 3 different people reading it. We saw with Joe Biden and Elizabeth Alexander, there were 2 different people reading it. So again, sort of thinking about, well, why is it broken up into 3 stanzas? What does that structure give us? How does that change the way that we approach the poem, where the lines break, for instance? And then we think about the text in history. So an example would be thinking about this in the history of American literature. Well, it's about Sunday. And in the US, throughout even in the 20th century, one of the things that happens on Sundays is people go to church often. And so that's why he would be wearing his good shoes maybe. We notice things about the context of this, banked fires, right? So he's actually lighting an actual fire in a fireplace. He's not just turning on the heat. It's a very different kind of time. So we think about how does that contribute? And then just the pleasure that we take in language. So now that we've heard you all read it, thinking about a couple words, we've talked about some of these different approaches. I would just love to hear a little bit more of what you all have thought coming back to it now, again, after a little bit more time and reflection. So what was that reading like for you? Hearing those other voices read it? Was there anything that came out that felt new to you when you heard that? And yeah, oh, I'm hearing someone jumping in. So do you want to just go ahead and?
May I?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I actually was struck by the way they actually describe love in the poem, because it's a very different way of describing love. As in, they're comparing love to an austere and a lonely office. It isn't grand or beautiful. You could call it cold and simple and lonely. But in reality, a lot of love might be like that, because, I like the narrator in the poem didn't really appreciate it and spoke to his father indifferently. But his father still loved him, and that itself counts for something. And it's an interesting way to describe love. It's cold like the name of the poem itself. It reminds you of winter.
Yes, yeah, beautiful. That's really beautifully put. And it is, yeah, it is sort of a new way of thinking about something that maybe you've even experienced or people around you have experienced, but haven't quite thought about it in these terms. And that those kinds of discoveries are some of the things that poetry can do to us. Do for us. I think I'm seeing some names, so maybe I'll try. Sunira, am I saying it right?
Yes, you are. So
Please.
basically, after reading the poem like the third time now, I am able to picture two perspectives of it, one in a positive way and one in a negative way. So for the positive way, actually first I'll speak of the negative way. It's more about sacrifices. It highlights the sacrifices done by the parent for his child. And the second, for the positive one, it's telling us how parenting itself is a selfless and often thankless work.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Yeah, parenting, not easy. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Also,
Nadia.
one thing, after Sundays, like in the first line itself, Sundays too, my father got up early. So here I think too means that Sundays as well, right? So he was working the whole week, but then like I feel kind of there should be an emphasis on two, because it says that because Sunday is mostly like a holiday for everyone, but not for parents.
Thank you so much for bringing our attention to that one word. And I think you're exactly right. If you think about how this would be stressed, if you read it, Sundays too, exactly that heavy stress right there. And when you, in the course, we'll talk about meter and how these different stresses play out. Sundays too, my father got up early. That really heavy stress on there.
In the writing and reading now, like I had this like for a really long time, that having voice modulation while you're reading or while reading poetry is really important, because if we don't, it changes like the perspective of the whole poem.
Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, no, exactly, really nicely observed. Navya, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. So as from the perspective of a kid, I feel like the poet is acknowledging his ignorance to the way, that it is acknowledging the ignorance, in the way that he behaved with his parents, and in the way that his dad would relentlessly work for him on even Sundays. And he just failed to notice the minor details, such as his cracked hands, and how it was a winter, early morning, and it must have been really cold. And I just feel like, as a child, I guess, the last line kind of made an impact, because it says, "What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices?" As children, or right now, I feel like we're at that age where we expect a lot from love. We expect that it gives and gives and gives, and that it's a very pleasant thing. But in reality, it might not always be that way. It might be unrequited,
And there's just so many possibilities that we don't know of, especially when it comes to love from the perspective of a parent. It's thankless. So I just feel like reading it once again made me realize all these things.
So it's possible that you all will take this this poem and you will go back to your parents and maybe you'll say thank you to them. Yeah. I think we'll have time for a couple more comments. I'm wondering if anyone who has their hand up or anyone else has thoughts about that second to last line, since we've brought our attention to the end of the poem, that repetition. It's a little bit surprising. It's the only place in the poem where we have a repetition. Does anybody want to comment on that precisely? Anyone want to just go ahead and chime in? Yeah, Ira?
Ira, thank you so much.
Ira, okay.
I was going to talk about the last two lines as it is, because although the entire poem is very touching, that's what stood out the most to me. So repetition or refrain in poetry is usually used to, put some emphasis on it. So the poet is, emphasizing how frustrated he was at his own naivety, at his own innocence as a child. That, because when you think of love, you think of this simple, warm feeling that's, it's there, but you don't think about how providing as a parent could be so isolating and so lonely in itself.
That's beautiful. Yeah, the emphasis, right? And almost like he's turning it over in his head. He can't stop thinking about it, right? What did I know? And maybe now he's a parent and now he knows. Rishi, do we have time for
Sure, Marissa. I mean, your time is the most precious one. So
no, everybody's time.
No, in the sense, I think that the students are so engaged that so I think we can take in the comments, but feel free to move. I know you have a lot to cover as well. So
no, I mean, this is the most important part for me. Here we are, for all of us, we're creating a community of poetry readers, community of interpreters. We're working together to work our way through this poem, understand it more deeply, see what we can take away from it. And it's a communal activity. So, and you all are just so really impressive. So, okay, let's see if we've got time for two more comments. So Shravali, I know you've had your hand up for a while. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, the way you mentioned that we can figure out that this is like a poem that's been written back in the day, like quite a while back, seeing the fact that it states that a bank fire blazes, which means it's not just, an electric fireplace, something, it's been made from scratch. Apart from which, I think that can also indicate a factor where mothers have always been given more credit as a parent. What parents do not, what people do not, or what society does not understand, what they fail to understand is that fathers are also equally as involved, maybe even more so at times. And with that, I think this poetry also puts light on the thankless job of being a father, because to the extent a mother is still thanked for being a mother, they're considered to be understanding, they're considered to be loving. But what people in the old times, particularly in old literature, ancient literature, fathers who were usually compared to this entity who was distant, cold, secluded, not in connect with their child. I think that also plays a part where they say that their love has been connected to its dark aspect, to the lonely and cold, austere offices, where there is also a side of love that you can see the beauty in it, but it is still cold. The way you see an icicle, it is beautiful, but it is still cold.
I love that image that you're building out on these images. And yeah, right, his hands are cracked, they ache. There's all of these physical descriptions. The chronic angers of the house is such a funny one, right? Because the chronic angers, it's almost like the house, this whole physical structure has anger that maybe comes in part from the father. Maybe there's some connection between them. The cracked hands make me think of cracked wood, like a house structure. And then the house is angry, perhaps like the father has issues with chronic anger. And so that distance, for the child, he might not feel the love because he's got this fear. But the father is like the house, right? It's just this thing that he takes for granted that's protecting him. you're bringing out this really beautiful, exactly as you say, the way that fathers sometimes seem not to be seen in the same light. Okay, Manat, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, but I saw in the chat you had something similar about parenthood. Do you want to go ahead and be our last commenter here?
Right. So I had a thought in mind more inclined towards parenthood, because I feel that this poem very rightly portrays the the kind of sacrifices that our parents, specifically fathers, make, which often goes unnoticed, because they're like the unsung heroes who don't actually we don't actually celebrate them each day. However, they are the ones who actually make the difference in their lives. So we know from the poem, because the poet is elaborating about how his father used to spend even his Sundays taking the pain and bringing comfort to the home and fulfilling his responsibility as a father. The word "to" in the first line emphasizes on how his weekdays used to be packed, but even he did not have the Sundays to himself, because he would always invest his time in working for the betterment of his children. One other thing I find I see from this poem is reflection. Because the poet was at a very tender age at this time, he could not really comprehend the kind of sacrifices his father used to make. So at that time, he did not understand he used to speak indifferently to him, because he felt that he was doing something he did not want him to, because he did not know that whatever his father was doing was for his own good. He did not know it at that moment, which is why he took it the wrong way. However, when he has grown up and maybe he's a parent himself, he has understood the reason for him doing such a thing. So it's basically like him understanding the reason for the actions of the parents. And this is one of the biggest realization that I think the poet wants to bring in the readers, because many readers have such a perception regarding their parents these days.
Yeah, beautiful. No, that's it. That sounds exactly right to me. That part of it is to help us maybe understand those things that we hadn't noticed when we were children, but also perhaps for all of us who've come to a similar realization about our parents and feel that regret. Here it is. It's putting on the page in very subtle terms, right? He doesn't say, "Oh, I really wish I'd gone and thanked him," right? It's all very subtle, setting this scene like someone described that beautiful cold icicle, so that we feel the intensity rather than just thinking it, right? And that's one of the amazing things that poetry can do, not just with the content and the choice of words, but also with things like the structure and the form and the music and the imagery and all of these different aspects that are coming together. I could go on and listen to you all for the rest of the day. We could go for hours, and as you can tell, I have a very hard time pulling away from this conversation. It's just wonderful, and I'm seeing so many fascinating points in the chat as well. I'm really grateful to you all. We're going to have to wrap up. I'm sad to say, but we're going to leave you with a little clip from that will, I think, we'll drop in the chat if I'm right, with Biden speaking about this poem, his thoughts about this poem. So this is the sort of thing that we're going to be doing in the summer intensive. We'll be watching from these episodes. We'll be doing small group work, reading and writing, preparing for what a college seminar would be like, and learning with these sorts of guest speakers and writers. So, and we're covering a wide range of topics. So there'll be topics on environmental sustainability, things about race and inequality, all these topics that we've been digging into today, some of the things that you've seen discussed in the episode on the clip on Harlem, human rights, as I mentioned, immigration, really wide range of different important globally important topics. So I just want to ask if anybody has any questions about the intensive. I may not be able to answer all of them, but in the last minute that we have, I'll do my best. And let me see if I can also drop this link into the chat for you all. Any questions?
I don't have question, but again, the winter Sunday, I just noticed one last thing in the corner of my eye. It's
Sure.
just the poet mentioned that that his father's cracked hands ached. But here's the thing: I don't see how he could have known that unless he had gone through a very similar experience. I think it's one of the more subtle ways where it seems to be pointing out that he himself has gone through such an experience now. That, there's the one line where there's more open frustration and say, what did I know? What did I know about love's lonely and cold austere office? But also the fact that he can tell that his father's hands ache, that they were cracked, but the fact that he knows now how much they ache, it seems to be more of a personal experience. And that's the only place where it seems more like his perspective is merged with that of his father's, because after that, the two perspectives are very separate. So that's why I think he's talking about his own experience.
That's wonderful. I love it. Thank you so much. Brilliant. Well, that's a great way to close out. I think that's the end of the hour for us. Rishi, what's the story here?
We can go ahead with the video that you're trying to show. I mean, is it something we can see together?
Yeah, we can if you all would like.
Sure.
Yeah, it's about 4 minutes long. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let's see if I put it in the chat. All right, everybody, we will be finishing off with this.
Polish my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know? Well, what I know of love. I mean,
right.
If you look back on all the medical research that's been done and all the talk about how bonding is so important with an infant.
Yes,
And so,
yes.
I mean, now I don't think he had that in mind going back that far, but there is this thing that, human beings, it matters how you touch. It matters what you say.
Yes.
It matters that, it matters.
And yet love does
Still.
survive even this kind of brokenness, because this is a poem, I believe, of great love
I agree.
for this father.
The basic, I should have known. Why couldn't I understand it? But, everybody gets absorbed in their own sense of where they're positioned, who they are, what they're doing at the time. But it is, austere, lonely offices. I mean, I understand my dad now. I look back on it, understand it. He was basically, I read that and translated. So, my dad was a hell of a guy.
Yeah.
My dad was a hell of a guy. Which makes you feel, it's funny how, a poem can sort of creep into your soul, and you go, oh, okay. You can feel it. You can picture it. You can sort of taste it.
Yes. And the emotion, I mean, where does the emotion in these last two lines come from?
I think it comes from, realization, maturation, having to deal with the things your dad dealt with as an adult. Now you are an adult.
Yes. I was wondering about the repetition. What did I know?
I think it's like, really, it's like mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. I am sorry, I'm heartily sorry. Like, God, what did I know? I didn't, how would anybody, and part of it is, I read it as a justification, like, well, how could I have known, by the way?
Oh.
What did I know?
And that's why you were mad at this entitled kid.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's
has your reading changed?
Well, it has. As you reread it, and quite frankly, I didn't know much about Hayden, but knowing I was going to do this, did a little
So you
research.
did some homework.
And I see it through a different light. But you could also see it as basically like, hey, Dad, I'm sorry, but how the hell do you expect me to know? I mean, what did I know? I had all these problems, and I lived in a lousy neighborhood, man. It was the toughest neighborhood in Detroit. And Dad, you weren't around, and Dad, the house was a lousy house we lived in. And damn, Dad, in the winter it was a bear. And Dad, you weren't always there, man. I got shuffled back and forth, and how the hell do you expect me to know? But now I know, Dad. Now I know.
Right.
That is one way of reading it. But I read it that way only because when I first read it, it was like, mea culpa. God, I'm sorry I didn't know.
Yes.
But when you go back and look at Hayden's background and the split, I can
probably
picture.
a little. You can understand why he was angry, right? You can
totally
understand this
it.
kid.
Sure.
Oh, my father never hugs me, as you pointed out. You don't even notice the small comforts that are being.
And by the way, the comforts, the other way you could picture, the comforts aren't comforts. I should be entitled to being warm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a comfort you provided me. Why the hell wasn't this a house that was,
I think in some ways we get a little portrait of the indifference of children. They do expect that their parents will take care of them.
All right, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Rishi, Alice, and Esther for helping to manage everything. This has been so much fun.
No, thank you. Thank you, Marissa. And I know, guys, 1 hour is just never enough, especially when we talk about poetry. But I really hope we've worked really hard to get this program to all of you guys this year. We begin on the 4th of July. And I'm really hoping that, you guys really work with these mentors. Ross, who's our instructor for this course, is fabulous. And we're going to have a lot more discussions, a lot more fun, and of course, talk about so many topics that Marissa talked about. So feel free to ask us any questions afterwards. Email us if you have any other queries related to the program. And we really hope that we're able to make you better writers, better thinkers, and just have a lot of fun along the way. So thank you all for joining in, and we'll see you all soon. Until then, have a great week ahead, have a great weekend, and be well. Thank you. See you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you.